So, executive functioning skills are a set of mental processes that happen in our prefrontal cortex that allow us to self-regulate and engage in goal-directed behavior. Many people think that executive functioning means that you're organized. So, things like showing up on time, keeping track of your belongings, and turning in assignments. This is a lot of times what we see when people are working on executive functioning in an educational setting. And it's even what parents are often focused on when they're thinking about executive functioning, if that's even something that's on their radar. Now, while executive functioning does include these things, it's much more than just this. And this lack of understanding is why so many kids are not getting the support that they need. If you Google executive functioning, you will probably see something similar to what I have in the middle in pink. So that's often how executive functioning is described. But what I have up top in purple are the skills that we actually need to work on when we are supporting executive functioning. So we have the skills that we're working on, how they actually look, how they can be broken down. We have those internal skills in the middle there that are the internal processes that are allowing us to do all those external things that we need to do. And then that has an impact on us socially, academically, vocationally, and functionally. I'm going to go through one at a time and talk about those things that I've got at the top, those things in the middle quickly. And obviously, you can see the impact that it's going to have on those other things on the bottom. So time perception would be our ability to sense the passage of time, both when we're thinking ahead in the future and estimating how long something will take, and while we're doing something. Then we have our ability to engage in self-talk. So we talk to ourselves when we're planning, when we are doing a task, and we are encouraging ourselves to look around and pay attention and persist through something that might be difficult. And then we talk to ourselves afterwards to self-reflect. We also engage in future pacing. So thinking ahead into the future and thinking about what's going to happen, what we can expect, or we might think back from a goal and think, here's where I'm going, here's what I need to do in order to get there. And in order to engage in future pacing, we need to have effective time perception and self-talk. We also have episodic memory. So our ability to visually think about things that happened in the past, like a mental picture of an experience that we've had, and then take that information and apply it to the future. So future pacing is thinking into the future, and episodic memory is thinking back from the past. So you can kind of see these two things go together. And then we have encoding. So encoding is used in a lot of different ways, but what I am talking about here is our ability to pair visuals to language. So we have to be able to think about how something looks visually, to picture ourselves doing something, but also be able to encode that into words. And that's what enables us to use things like lists for planning. If we don't have that skill of being able to encode, then all those lists that we're using are not going to be meaningful to us. We have to be able to go back and forth between that visualization and language. Those 5 things at the top, time perception, self-talk, future pacing, episodic memory, and encoding, are ways that we can organize those skills in the middle in the pink that are the executive functioning skills. So things like attending, being able to focus in on something and notice when we're off task, being able to inhibit, resist the impulse to stop doing something and start doing something else when we're in the middle of something that is something that we find boring, to be able to listen to someone else instead of blurting out, to be able to sit and focus on our teacher instead of getting up out of our desk. All of those things impact inhibition. So you can kind of see attention and inhibition go together. Working memory, our ability to pay attention to and process incoming information. This could be language. This could be visual information. So take that information and use it, kind of like when somebody tells you a phone number and you remember those numbers in your mind and then you type them into your phone. Fluency and shifting include our ability to generate ideas, generate options for doing things, come up with a plan B, and to be able to do it efficiently. So you can kind of see those two things go together. You have to notice when you're off track, You have to understand where you're going in the first place. And then if you're off track, you have to come up with additional options for getting where you're going and adjusting. There's the strategic planning and organization, our ability to know what our end goal is and plan backwards, understand what the steps are, what they look like, and then also so that we can initiate a task. It's hard to initiate a task if we can't inhibit our behaviors, if we're not attending, and if we don't know where to start because we haven't engaged in that strategic planning. And then we've also got self-monitoring and regulation, our ability to read incoming information, whether it be during a conversation when there's a lot going on, whether it be during an academic environment, or whether it be that we are in our kitchen cooking and paying attention to a bunch of different things going on in the room at the same time. This is also key to those emotional responses because we might, during some of those times, experience some frustration, some anxiety, maybe due to how we come across, the way that someone responds to us, or maybe we're frustrated because we're struggling to do something. So being able to regulate ourselves, our emotional reactions while we're doing all of those things. So now coming back to all of these things I mentioned at the beginning, things that we typically associate with attention issues, which attention is part of executive functioning. So that's certainly a factor. With learning issues, with difficulty problem solving, inferencing, not learning from past mistakes and not generalizing, many of those things can be tied to difficulties with planning, visualizing, time perception, and our ability to access episodic memory and really retrieve those mental images of past experiences and apply them to the future, as well as the issues with behavior and self-regulation. And when we're talking about things like task avoidance, refusal, and defiance, many times those can be tied with skill-based issues that students are having a difficult time articulating. Of course, we have the organization issues, which are commonly seen as executive functioning challenges. A lot of times people realize that organizing is part of this, but what they're often missing is the attention to time perception and how that plays into things. It's not just about knowing what to do, it's about how long things will take. And then finally, we have the social category. What people don't realize often is that social skills have to do with executive functioning. When kids are blurting or dominating the conversation, many times it's because there are issues with working memory, to process all of the incoming information, to know where to look for information. And social situations in general may be very anxiety-inducing because they're so unstructured. They may seem kind of scary to kids with executive functioning challenges. And as a result, they may avoid those situations that will give them opportunities to build some of these skills.